I think the overarching theme of a conversation, I guess, should be that neither person should be coming from a viewpoint of trying to convert the other person, but rather just trying to understand where the other person is coming from.
When it comes to debate and conversation about religion, I don't mind sharing what it is that I think or believe, or listening to what others think or believe. One thing that can be really difficult is if one person or both people are unwilling to be open-minded and actually hear what it is the other person is trying to say. I don't think that in a conversation like that listening to the other person is agreeing with what they have to say.
If you've been raised in a church, there are so many things that may affect your day-to-day life that you don't think about them as church-based. And because the customs change so much from church to church or family to family, you can't assume what people know and what they normalize. There have been funny moments or awkward moments where there's something that someone may have taken for granted that I would just know what it meant or even what's going on that have been tricky. Prayer is an interesting one. I've met religious families that pray before dinner and some that don't. Answer questions if anyone asks. And it's not out of disrespect. I know that I have occasionally drove my husband crazy with very dumb questions, but I'm genuinely curious and interested in the answer with the utmost respect. I'm not trying to pick apart and tease in any way. I've noticed that when I ask those dumb questions, a lot of the time there's an assumption that I may be trying to do a little jab. I'm not. I just don't know. So take the chance to educate people, and it'll help those situations go a lot more smoother.
I've had some difficult conversations with some friends. There's a friend in particular who knew I didn't believe in a personal God and said something about me and God, and I said, well, you know, I'm not really there. I don't really agree with you about the belief in God. And she said, I thought you were getting better, which was offensive. That kind of statement. I mean, the suggestion that I would be better if I was a person of faith, it kind of shuts me down and is difficult for me. And so that would sort of end the conversation there.
Now that my perspective has changed, when I face a difficult situation such as illness or a death of a loved one, the things that I used to hear that were comforting, it doesn't really help in that challenging circumstance.
A couple of years ago, my wife's grandmother passed away, and she was grieving, and some of her friends, some people of faith that she knew, were very well-meaning, but they said, oh, it's okay, she's gone to a better place. And that doesn't necessarily help people who aren't of faith deal with grief, and it isn't going to make it okay. Those kind of comments aren't always very helpful in conversations.
If I could paint the scenario myself, if I could think of the ideal way that my religious family members could respond to me, the biggest thing I would say is don't worry. Don't worry about me or my soul or my afterlife. I'm not.
As an atheist now, I have a hard time when I'm going to be sharing what it is that I believe with someone. I don't want to crush their spirit. I don't want to, hurt them in any way. And one thing I would say is that I don't think people should take it personally. I'm not wanting to tell them to no longer believe. I am just saying this is where I am personally. And it can be hard though, with family members in particular, when I'm coming to them with information that I've lost my faith and it has to do with something that is so near and dear to their heart. I have a really hard time seeing that pained look in my family members' eyes. It's not easy for either side.
I think in order to lubricate positive conversations with anyone, the same principles apply. So it doesn't matter if it's about a secular person or just someone who comes from a different place or a different background. So be fair, be open, be honest, and be respectful.
I'm never offended if someone says they're going to pray for me. I may not believe that it's going to have a huge benefit, but I know it's well-meaning, and so I appreciate that.
I have had some really helpful conversations with people of faith. They were very sincere, they were very genuine in approaching me, and I could tell that they didn't have an agenda and that they really were asking me questions and just being humble in their approach to me, and I appreciated that greatly.
So if someone who feels and gets so much from God has a desire to share that with someone else who may or may not believe yet or be as familiar, I think it can be tricky to introduce. Maybe turn the tables around and ask them what excites them. If you can get a conversation going, a two-way conversation about what both of you love and feel strongly about, I think you'll end up having better results and get more out of it versus you trying to share one way. I don't often get asked to talk about my beliefs, my value system, how I've come to those beliefs, and why I love them and the peace that it brings me. So I'm really excited to share. I think it's a great conversation to have for both sides.